It's a beacon of shimmering energy, a testament to his immense power. It now stood weathered and crumbling, a sad reflection of the man within. Moss crept over stones where magical runes once glowed, and the wind whispered through shattered windows, telling tales of a power long faded. Inside, amidst dusty tomes and forgotten artifacts, Eldrin stood, his back stooped with the weight of years and disappointment. He raised a trembling hand, his voice a raspy echo of its former booming command. He was trying a simple spell, one he could have done in his sleep in his primacharm to light a single candle. He muttered the ancient words, the familiar syllables that once danced on his tongue and crackled with power. But now they felt foreign, empty. The air remained still. Instead of a gentle flame, a sputtering spark erupted from his fingertips, fizzled pathetically, and died, plunging the room back into gloom. The failure was more than just a failed spell. It was a final, mocking confirmation. His magic was gone, utterly and completely gone. Despair was a heavy cloak, but beneath it, a tiny ember of his old stubbornness flickered. He couldn't accept this. A wizard without magic was just a man in a dusty robe. He refused to fade into obscurity. There had to be an answer. Poring over ancient maps and scrolls he could barely read without a magical lens, he found it a whisper, a legend, of a place called the Sunken Grove, a hidden sanctuary where the world's raw magic was said to pool like a deep silent lake. It was a perilous journey, a fool's errand for a man with no power to defend himself. But it was his only hope, packing a simple bag with dried rations, a water and a rusty dagger he hadn't touched in a century. Eldrin left his crumbling tower behind. The world outside was a harsh and unfamiliar place without the buffer of his magic. The whispering woods he once commanded now felt menacing, their shadows hiding unseen threats. The majestic mountains he could once cross with a single teleportation spell now loomed as impassable barriers. His first major obstacle was the chattering canyons, a maze of narrow gorges where the wind howled and mimicked voices, driving travelers mad. Without magic to guide him, he relied on something he hadn't used in decades. His intellect. He watched the sun's path, noted the patterns in the moss growing on the rocks, and tied scraps of his robe to mark his path, slowly and methodically navigating the disorienting labyrinth. Days turned into weeks. His fine robes were torn and tattered, his beard matted with dirt. He was no longer a grand wizard, but a weary On his journey, he stumbled into a bustling marketplace, a riot of color and noise. Here, he met a young trickster named Lyra, a sharp-witted girl who made a living with sleight of hand and a silver tongue. She tried to pick his pocket, but Eldrin, his senses now honed by necessity, caught her wrist. Instead of anger, he saw a spark of intelligence in her eyes. Seeing his weary state, and perhaps a bit of pity, she offered to guide him through the treacherous Serpent's Pass in exchange for the last of his silver coins. He agreed. Lyra's knowledge of the hidden paths, and her ability to talk their way past grumpy toll guards and suspicious patrols, proved more valuable than any spell. She taught him how to read people, woe to barter, and how to disappear into a crowd skills a powerful wizard never needed to learn. Their journey together was a strange one. He, the former master of arcane secrets, found himself learning from a common street thief. He learned that cunning could be as sharp as a magical blade, and a well-told story could be as persuasive as a mind-controlled charm. As they neared the Sunken Grove, the air grew thick and heavy, humming with a strange, dissonant energy. It wasn't the pure, life-giving magic. He remembered. It felt siphoned, corrupted. Finally, they reached the grove. It was not the vibrant sanctuary of legend. The ancient trees were withered husks, their leaves black and brittle. The magical pool was a murky, stagnant puddle, and in the center a figure stood, bathed in a sickly green light. It was a being made of shifting shadows and stolen light, a magical parasite, and clutched in its ethereal hand was a glowing orb, pulsing with familiar energy. It was Eldrin's magic, ripped from him and contained. The shadow creature turned, its voice a chorus of stolen whispers. It had been drawn to his immense power, draining it slowly over the years from afar, causing his magic to weaken and eventually fail. It had consumed the magic of the grove, and now it wanted the final dregs from Eldrin himself. It lunged, not with physical force, but with waves of pure magical energy. Eldrin instinctively tried to summon a shield, his hands forming the old, familiar patterns, but nothing happened. Panic flared. He was defenseless. The creature laughed, a soundly shattering glass. It reveled in his powerlessness, but as a blast of his own stolen energy surged towards him, Lyra tackled him, pulling him behind a petrified tree. "You can't fight it with magic you don't have, old man," she yelled over the roar. "What else do you know?" Her words cut through his fear. What else did he know? He knew alchemy. He knew physics. He knew history. He knew the intricate laws of magic, not just how to use it, but how it worked. His mind, his greatest asset, raced. The creature was pure magic, but it was also unstable, a chaotic collection of stolen power. It had a core, the orb, and it fed on the ambient energy around it. He just needed to disrupt the connection. He grabbed his tinderbox and a small pouch of sulfur he carried for emergencies. He explained his plan to Lyra in quick, sharp sentences. It was insane, but it was all they had, while Lyra created a diversion. Throwing rocks and shouting insults to draw the creature's attention, Eldrin scrambled to the edge of the murky pool. He worked frantically, using his knowledge of arcane runes, not to cast a spell, but to draw a complex diagram in the Muda containment circle based on principles of magical resonance and harmonic discord. He wasn't casting a spell, he was creating a feedback loop. Just as the creature turned its attention back to him, he threw the sulfur into the dregs of the magical pool and struck his flint, igniting it. A full-smelling green flame erupted. He then completed the final rune. The circle flared not with power, but with a dissonant hum. The corrupted energy from the pool was drawn into the diagram, twisted, and reflected back at the creature. It shrieked as the feedback loop overloaded its unstable form. It couldn't control the conflicting energies. The orb in its hand flickered wildly. With a final, deafening implosion of light and shadow, the creature dissolved into nothingness. The orb of Eldrin's magic fell to the ground, its glow fading until it was just a cool, smooth stone. His magic was gone forever, but he had won. The journey back was quiet. The weight of his loss was real, but it was no longer crushing. He had faced the thing that stole his power and defeated it with nothing but his mind and the help of a friend. He had survived. When he finally stood before his tower, it looked different. It wasn't a tomb of his former glory anymore. It was just a building. A home. He entered the dusty halls, but instead of despair, he felt a sense of peace. He had spent centuries accumulating power, but in the end, it was his knowledge that had saved him. He looked at the thousands of books lining his walls, not as spell components, but as what they were. Collections of wisdom, history, science, and art. Lara, who had decided the quiet life was a nice change of pace, helped him clean. They swept away the dust of ages, letting sunlight stream through the repaired windows. Soon, word of the wizard who had lost his magic, but not his mind, began to spread. Young scholars, aspiring alchemists, and curious historians began to make the journey to his tower. They didn't come seeking spells or enchantments. They came seeking knowledge. Eldrin, the once great wizard, found a new purpose. He became Eldrin, the teacher. He taught astronomy by charting the stars with a telescope, not a scrying pool. He taught botany by cultivating a garden of rare herbs, not by magically growing them. He taught history by telling the grand stories he had lived. His voice, once used for powerful incantations, now wove tales that sparked curiosity and ignited imaginations. His tower, once a monument to solitary power, became a vibrant school, a beacon of knowledge and learning for a new generation. He had lost his magic, but in doing so, he had found a truer, more lasting legacy. Thanks for watching our story today. If you enjoyed this journey, remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from realms of fantasy and adventure. We'll see you next time.